King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast, a weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the King of Podcasts. Let's go with episode number 170 of the Broadcasters Podcast here at broadcasterspodcast.com. Thanks for being here. Getting right into it. This week's program is going to focus on streaming media, reinventing, revolutionizing, and rolling over corporate media. I know. It sounds like I'm a broken record here, and I'm talking about the same thing over and over. I get that part, but what needs to be understood is this. Overall with this program, as we record this show every week, as I do this and I prepare this show every week, I am fascinated by the ongoing dynamic of corporate versus creative and how streaming and the digital disruption has continued to go ahead and just destroy and create a continual decline in what the establishment media was. Traditional media, corporate owned, corporate backed, corporate constructed. And that's what's happening now. Because there's so many different factors that can be monetized on, that can be used for marketing purposes, that will be viral, that are being missed out because the corporate media is having, for the last year or two, they have been playing backup. They've been playing catch up, with the streaming media sector because they thought, they were going to have time to eventually have to go ahead and integrate into digital. They knew it was going to have to be something down the line. But again, as corporate always does, they forget. And they always do this to themselves. So what happens is, in all this time, how quickly that industries change overnight after what happens. And when it comes to this program, I just realized this. Other media programs are not going to talk about this. Because there's people that have a vested interest in what they're going to be doing in media down the line, or if they want to go and play nice with other people. I don't worry about talking to celebrities. I don't worry about talking about certain people. Listen, the interviews I got lucky because some people wanted to go ahead and talk to me because I put some pitches out there, and I had some people that were interested in talking to me. And those interviews have been great. I've really enjoyed them. But now my focus is more on the fact of this continuous decline, this steady decline of the traditional media we've been accustomed to, because digital is taken over more and more every day. And it's a fascinating story. Nobody wants to really go ahead and put all the stories together and talk about it. And like I said, it's not a overly fascinating subject I talk about. Media is just for mediaphiles, for people that are in the business that would be interested about somebody actually giving a critique about it, at least being smart enough, or at least being cognizant enough to be able to give a couple of words together and put a decent point out. Now, am I the most expert person on this? No. But as I say on this program, I have all this experience in media. I have been in the corporate end of radio, newspapers, and television. And I understand that part. And I see why everything's falling apart as it is. Does it need to be that way? No, of course not. But again, it's because the corporate entities and who are running those entities, the people that are running them before, they're not the same. The people that were at the top, that were able to make decisions and were willing to be risk takers, no, that doesn't happen now. When I think of the people that ran television or ran radio over decades, remember, radio at one point was a dying brand in the 50s. Because television was the disruptor that changed the way that media was being consumed, not just listened to, but watched and viewed. And the last time we really had a change of that, all we've had of a change of this nature was, again, it's just the devices we're watching on. That's what happened. Then VCRs again. So on demand, when we want to go and record it and then watch it again, that changed. So it was always the conveniences that would come into play. The internet, of course, has been the ultimate factor. And there were those well before that knew that the internet was going to make a significant change. They all knew it. And some of the smartest people that were in business, that were large corporate or corporations, smart as a whip, they all knew it was coming. Ted Turner. I remember reading a book about the story of Nitro and WCW, the wrestling. because I do a wrestling podcast. Well, in that book, Ted Turner does talk about how he allowed this particular wrestling promotion that he had under his wing to do things in a digital division. Because there were certain people that said, yeah, let's put a budget on it. It doesn't really matter what we're going to be able to get out of it. Let's just see what happens. And this company did start live streaming. They live streamed audio. They live streamed video. They tried some of the early things going on with Mark Cuban's platform. It didn't work well, but they were trying to go and get to the point where to see if they could monetize it and they could get some paid subscribers. But the usage ability, the adoption was incredible. So those early indicators in the mid-90s or late 90s indicated that this would be greatly adopted. Anything on digital, if it's done right, and people were willing to go ahead and suffer through some of the setbacks because the bandwidth connections were not good enough. Of course, we're talking about DSL. Where we are now, we're at 5G for phones. We have, some people have a gig of internet bandwidth right now at home on Wi-Fi. We have more than enough capability now to stream high definition audio and video in probably better quality than what we get from cable. Because I mean, for me, I have digital cable, but it's still underground wires. And that's still like that anyway. They're not getting rechanged or reconfigured or getting replaced. No, of course not. And then some places are still using satellites, and they're digital satellites, and they might not be great because you still get some feedbacks. You might get sunspots. You might get some things where you'll get some blackouts. That technology, in the traditional sense, is not as effective as it is now, like the internet, because the internet is getting perfected. We see how much capability we have right now, and all we're getting now is the internet's just getting more portable and flexible for us to consume content in any way, shape, or form that we want. And when we've had some corporate giants that have been risk takers, when they have tried to give it a chance, we talked about Quibi last year. They tried. It didn't work because the risk was not a bad risk. Like, it was not a bad idea. The concept actually sounded pretty good. But celebrities, the content they were putting into it, the kind of money they were putting into it, it didn't work. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, to his credit, he took a hit for it. Might have to take a little ding to his reputation with DreamWorks and all the work he's done at Walt Disney, all the things that he did beforehand. So he took a hit. And so the credit was, he got out of it. He said, you know what? It's not working. We need to shut it down. He did not try to go ahead and, try to sail a sinking ship. He took it. And he'll find his way back somewhere in the space, and that's it. And as for trying to be risk-taking, well, that's what corporate doesn't want to do. They don't want to shake the apple cart. They don't want to make any changes. We're rehashing everything. The success right now for NBC to say, hey, Law and Order Organized Crime, we got 7 million viewers. That's now considered a big win. If we looked at that 10 years ago, and that show didn't at least get 15 to 20 million viewers, would have been considered a failure. It wasn't that long ago where 7 million viewers was the lowest any show ever got. And now look where we are. Some shows getting 2-3 million viewers, and that was enough to easily get canceled or be on the bubble. Now some shows just have to stay on to survive. There's a thing to be said about how Hell's Kitchen has 19 seasons. The Kardashians have, 20 seasons? Or NCIS is running, 20-plus seasons? So you got that, or NCIS Los Angeles running that to the ground. Blue Bloods over 10 years. When I look at The Voice, has gone for a long time. American Idol for a long time. I feel like some of the last risk taking was at the start of the millennium, and ever since, no one has really done anything to make any change on network or cable television. There's been nothing groundbreaking or legendary because that's not happening there. The risk-taking will all be done online because of the cost to do it through the traditional linear system that was in place. And there's no one that has any good idea that says, okay, we're going to invest in this right now. No. Instead, the investment's being taken away. Less in linear. Some things are still being produced traditionally, but the content's going online. And now, these corporate giants are more worried about subscribers and the hit that they're taking for money that it would get from traditional outlets. Okay, like I said, Warner Brothers. We talked about the gentleman from Warner Brothers that said, hey, we have to do something here. We're struggling now. We don't have, we might have success. I mean, I'm not saying it in the way he said it, but the truth is there might have been some things that happened where they might have found some success with HBO Max getting some more subscribers. But the money they took did not get to take in for the movies that they got. The risk it took for that was huge. Again, these corporate entities want to be able to just use digital as a secondary market. They don't want it to be the primary market, but they're already at risk of losing that. Netflix is a risk taker. Apple is a risk taker. And some of these other streamers, they're taking some of the concepts they had, and they're just taking what's working good and not relying on their cable platforms that are failing or starting to continually decline. They're saying, no, we're going to put it on digital. Let's see if we can get an audience there. Let's see if we can get a subscriber base and hold on to them as best we can. Funny part is, all these platforms really run well. I have not been on Discovery Plus, but I've been on Peacock. I watched WrestleMania this weekend, and you know what? The service was great. No problems. But have I wanted to watch anything else on Peacock? No. But I have a subscription just for WWE Network, which, and the thing was, in this corporate giant, the people watching on WWE Network, they could have been accepting, like I was for all these years, to go ahead and continue to go and pay all the money I was paying for it. I was paying up to $10 a month, and I did that since 2014. So again, they got me for several $1,000s all this time. I'm trying to think, okay, $120. Oh, I'm sorry, almost $1,000. $800 That's what they got me for this whole time. But that's still money that they got for me consistently. And over 1 million subscribers. How many of those decided to go over to Peacock and decided to go and make that same price? The other problem was WWE Network was available on all platforms, and Peacock is not yet. I mean, I had to sideload Peacock onto the Amazon Fire Stick to get it to work. It worked perfectly, but again, I've got to crutch myself. I said over some other podcasts, I've been saying, but again. Well, I'm going to catch myself every time I do it. That's the first time. I got to hold off on that. So there we go there. Now, moving along. We're going to look at some of the things that are happening right now in the space when it comes to the changes that are happening and the legacies being left behind right now. Because I don't know how long Netflix has been around, but again, I just did it again. Wow. So Netflix's existence, when I look back, it was 1997. And when I look at the price right now and how powerful they are, their stock price right now, $549. That's incredible. Incredible. And they have done so well. And when you look at what they've gone to get to the streaming platform that they are now and what they've been able to do is something more than ever. The streaming concept started in 2007. Spotify is now 15 years old. Also, 2006 they started. We're going to talk about that right now from a Variety.com article from Kristen Robinson talking about 15 years of Spotify, how the streaming giant has changed and reinvented the music industry. Well, we know the disruptor, which it did not spend enough time, to really make enough of a difference, but they created the disruption anyway. Napster. They were the disruptor. Sean Parker. Social Network. You see that movie? You got to watch it. Sean Parker was definitely the one that helped to, with the Napster platform, definitely broke the music industry. And Spotify has been a solid space, even though have had an Apple to get where it needs to be today. So let's go back to that time, 1999. Due to peer-to-peer file sharing platforms like Napster and LimeWire, U.S. recorded music revenues had lost more than half of their value in the early years of the 21st century. The highest was $14.6 billion, and that's why this digital disruption happened. The music industry was taking so much money. I remember paying $16 to $20 for a CD. For one CD, for one album. Maybe a greatest hits with maybe 15 to 20 songs on it of an artist. Or maybe a collaboration. That's a lot of money. And to be able to know that all I have to do now for the price of that, I have a service now where I can have the complete library of music and my entire family has access to it. Tells you everything. And that's what the biggest part is that when the original space of physical units was compromised, no one in the music industry planned for it. That's the significance of Spotify and Apple iTunes. 2014 went down to $6.7 billion. Songs transition from being sold in a physical object like a CD or vinyl to becoming a sound file that can be easily and illegally distributed for free. Piracy ran rampant as the music industry failed to come to grips with how quickly and drastically its world had changed. iTunes brought some stability to a business model in free fall. In essence, an entire generation grew up believing that it didn't have to pay for music, and that's what happened. So coming up right now, next week, April 23rd, 2006, it'll be 15 years that Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen changed all that in Stockholm, Sweden. A solution to the industry's piracy problem. An on-demand streaming service that was built on the understanding that consumers who aren't inclined to buy a specific album or song might be willing to pay for ease of access to a large library of music. $10 a month. What a great price for that. Or you can listen for free, because the freemium model obviously is very important because you do get to listen through advertisements, and if you don't mind doing it, you do it. That was only in Europe at that time. The site's an open archive, easily searchable, replete with music, more music than anyone could play in a lifetime. And then the launch in July 2011 opened the floodgates, and Apple Music streaming service would debut 4 years later. How completely has streaming transformed the music world? The platform rose from 7% in 2010 to 83% of the market by the end of 2020. So almost everybody is streaming music now. Might be listening to radio, might put on a CD or a record, but they're streaming. Many of them. Recorded music revenue saw their fifth consecutive year of growth, topping $12.12 billion. No understatement to say that streaming has saved the recorded music business, and that global market leader Spotify led the charge toward the stability and growth that the industry is enjoying today. In honor of the changing digital service, Variety actually went and looked at the transformations and modifications that they did with this, on how they consume music and how people brought new functionalities to the platform. Some of the things that they mentioned is the decline of music piracy, because now less than at this point, a UK study by market researcher YouGov, music piracy fell from 18% in 2013 to 10% in 2018. And the 2019 study of all online piracy by the American University International Law Review stated that online piracy is declining. The key driver of this decline is the increasing availability of affordable legal content rather than enforcement measures. And that's the other thing that happened with videos. With physical units, everybody wanted to pirate it. Find a way to go and watch it some other way. Now, there's still some ways where people will pirate stream content. But, again, when you have a Netflix and it's pretty affordable and you have so much content, then it overpowers the need of doing anything else. And that's why. Then we had a de-genreification of music. So people would pay nearly $20 for an album they ended up not liking. Subscription services enable users to explore limited artists, genres, and sounds for $10 a month. And I'll admit, it allowed me to go ahead and really experiment on different music that I would have never listened to before. And if people wanted to go ahead and introduce me to a song, all I had to do was just pull it up on Spotify. And it sounded great. And that's even better. Just exploration of being able to go ahead and find new music out there. It's wonderful. Here's another thing that happens too. Not only has streaming led to genre-fusing styles like SoundCloud rap, but a 2019 survey by research firm Y-Pulse found that 85% of millennial Spotify users said their music tastes do not fall into one category, which is what I say about radio. The fact is, radio needs to quit being so homogenized. What they should do is go back to where they were 30 years ago, when they didn't have a top 40 format that was just so pop constructed. They need to broaden that format out and make it more of a mainstream music format. Let the top 40, 100 songs in the country or whatever there is, and let it be whatever genre it is, the most popular songs. Now, the songs are going to be determined by some audience metric testing or research that is antiquated. Put the songs out there that people want to listen to that are popular, which is what happens in Europe and other countries, but not the USA or Canada, for that matter. They talk about the ad-supported tier, the free tier, which has really brought a lot of people over, because I remember when I got into it, I basically said, okay, well, I'll get into this. And again, the reason I got into Spotify in the first place is when I saw that Billboard was working with them to put their charts up there, that sold me. Because before then, I had already started. That was when I really started looking at, oh, you know what? I'm going to take a look at Spotify and download the app and see what it's like. And I did. And I loved it. And I was like, okay, I think at some point I might just buy it. And then I found she finally said, you know what? I'll do it. I've had it 5 years now, and I love it. I don't know what, I mean, I love it, and I don't know what to do without it. Like, I stream a lot of other content. I still stream quite a bit of radio now, but Spotify still, for me, is wonderful. It's also, I mean, a lot of it needs to be considered as well about Audible and the audio content they give there. That's also wonderful. Then you have autoplay. Then they also had ending Apple's monopoly with the iPod and iTunes. And the playlist curators becoming stars. And then you had the year in recaps. The Spotify Wrapped, which is awesome. To get all our songs back so we can see what all songs we were listening to before is really cool. You can actually listen to what was the number one song that you listened to last year. For me, it was Super Lonely by Benet and Gus Dapperton. It was. That's what it was. I think Dua Lipa's Don't Start Now was after that for 2020. You know, it was the start of last year, right? Then you have songwriter, producer credits, and promotion. You can see that better. Instead of looking for some album liners or trying to look through the whole rigmarole of album liners, they're going to look for something. The problematic hateful conduct policy. So when R. Kelly had his issues with sexual misconduct allegations, Spotify took the content down. Artists can share their stories and now have Spotify clips, direct donations so that people can actually do crowdfunding on the app, many videos to accompany songs, licensed music for podcasts, which is great. And also they're working the podcast front. You know, they are doing a lot of work. They now have a chart list of their top podcasts, top episodes, and things like that. That's actually pretty cool too. They're definitely cornering the market on podcasting. Probably a little bit more than iHeartRadio is, to be honest. Even though iHeartRadio can try to claim that they have the biggest podcast audience of all. Controversial targeted ads from artists. And that's the top 15 things that they had. For what it's worth, Spotify has been wonderful. And what they've done for music has been great. And I'll tell you, if we did not have that radio, I don't even know what radio would be. But for how radio has survived all this, it's amazing. But again, it's a continued decline. Because even then, it was the cannibalization of the music industry. How much records were being sold for. The radio stations, the control of what songs would get put out in order to go ahead and get physical units sold. Because radio had the market on that. And Clear Channel, and CBS, and all these other companies, and Cumulus, and Citadel, they all were getting together to deregulation. And by that point, 10 years into the deregulation of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, all this changed. And again, I just said again. And so it took 10 years for all that corporate greed to go ahead and fester. And then it took about that same amount of time for the response to it, kind of the Robin Hood type response, to go ahead and change that all around. So that the corporate giants did not have the control over us for our dollars. And what the digital disruption did was they made our lives easier, made it so that music could actually be consumed better. It was easier for everybody to listen to new music. listen to music from anywhere around the world, listen to any artist out there. It's been made that way now. Much different than ever before. So I'm going to go one more thing into audio before I go and move along into some of the things that are happening with television and sports. I want to get into that in a few minutes. So let's go into Clubhouse. Social audio. I talked a little bit about this briefly. I'm waiting for next month. There's a word that the beta version for Clubhouse for Android will be coming out. And once that comes up, I hope to go and jump on there and get involved. So there's a story I take from allwork.space. The word is now that Clubhouse is no longer the darling of the social audio world. You need to know what's going on. Clubhouse now faces strong competition from Twitter Spaces, Spotify, and LinkedIn. And the writer of this article is saying that they see an opportunity for an app that enables users to organize all the social audio rooms they'd like to participate in. So as we know, Clubhouse, the app right now, as of March 2021, has 12.7 million downloads globally, just for iPhones. But now the competition is coming in. Next, you got Twitter Spaces, a new way to have live conversations on Twitter. It's not yet available to everyone to host a space, but everyone can listen in on a conversation. Now, their thing is it will be a nice user experience, they say, commitment to including accessibility features, and unlike Clubhouse, will be available on desktop. Then Spotify, they acquired Betty Labs, the company behind the live sports audio app Locker Room. And now, according to The Verge, Locker Room will stay in the App Store, but will be rebranded with a different name and a broader focus on music, culture, and sports content. And then LinkedIn. They'll be doing their own version of Instagram stories. And they're talking about doing a Clubhouse-inspired tool. They're also going to come into the space. The LinkedIn social audio experiences promises to be different from the competition because it will be connected with users' professional identity, not just a social profile. TechCrunch reports the company has already built out a platform that serves the creator community, which today has access to tools like Stories, LinkedIn Live video broadcasting, newsletters, and more. Within Clubhouse, there's a talk of an option to link your LinkedIn profile to your Clubhouse bio. When that happens, more LinkedIn users will jump on the Clubhouse. So the LinkedIn team has to hurry up. If you told me that after the pandemic that audio would be the most important thing to do because it's a reaction to people getting tired of being seen on Zoom calls, yeah, I would have said you're crazy too. But we all got tired of Zoom calls. We got tired of the casualness. It's much easier to go in and listen to somebody's voice because some people are still, when you're doing this on a Zoom call, you still want it to look good, and some people have a particular affinity to go ahead and watch something that's polished and clean, especially news broadcasts or the Today Show, things like that. And to see people on Zoom calls or late night shows on Zoom calls, no. That's why I talked about last week how Hollywood is trying to get themselves back up and running with actual programming with live audiences once again, because they don't want to deal with this all anymore of the Zoom calls, because they know it's been hurting their bottom line and it's been hurting their audience base. And will they come back? And will they decide to go ahead and move on to digital streaming and never come back? Well, the COVID impact continues on. Let's go on to that right now. Forbes.com talks about the impact COVID-19 had on entertainment in 2020. It's a full-fledged comprehensive report. Motion Picture Association, they released their theme report covering 2020, tracking theatrical and in-home entertainment industry both globally and domestically, as well as other video industries. If you want to get a picture as to where movie studios, the production studios, everything getting shut down and how big of a hit all these companies took, let us talk about that. We now have a comprehensive report. Some of the findings: global revenue. 2020, the entire global theatrical and home mobile entertainment market totaled $80.8 billion, lowest figure since 2016, down 18% from the year before. The theatrical revenue went from $42.3 billion, which was one of their best years in 2019, down to $12 billion in 2020. Theatrical entertainment only accounted for 15% of the total global entertainment revenue. Last year, 43%. With shutdowns Customers relied on video on demand, streaming video, and electronic sell-through for entertainment. Digital entertainment accelerated, up 31% to $61.8 billion. So that's where that money went. Digital media had accounted for over 3/4 of total theatrical home/mobile entertainment revenue. There are now, up from 2019, 26% more online video subscribers worldwide. 1.1 billion. That's where your audience is at. Physical entertainment revenue continued to decline. So DVD, Blu-ray, and rentals only totaled $7 billion, half of what it was in 2016. And physical entertainment globally accounted for 9% of total revenue. That is incredible. Domestic revenue, U.S. theatrical, 2020, home/mobile entertainment market, $32.2 billion, down 11%. Theatrical, only $2.2 billion for the country, or 7% of all the revenue. And theatrical year before, $11.4 billion. Major hit. Digital entertainment grew, and so you're talking about digital revenue in the States, $26.5 billion, up a third. 33% from last year, or 2019. And digital revenue exploded for 82% of theatrical, mobile, home revenue compared to 55% in 2019. So again, the amount of adoption to digital, or the people that just relied on digital across the board, it completely switched. The pendulum switched and went to the other side. It swung completely one way, the other way. And the physical entertainment industry didn't have a chance. Who would have thought this would escalate things so quickly, but it did. And physical entertainment took a decline 26% year to year. Streaming, here's where your money is. So online video subscriptions, 308.6 million subscribers, up 32%. Online video subscriptions went up 35% in 2020. $24.7 million in online video subscriptions. That's major money. Netflix had 9 of the 10 most original streamed programs based on minutes streamed. Ozark was the top. The outlier was Mandalorian on Disney Plus, which ranked 5th. And the 10 most watch-acquired series were all on Netflix, led by The Office, which is now on Peacock. As for movies, Disney Plus dominated the most streamed films of the year. Frozen 2 was their top. The most streamed Netflix film was The Secret Lives of Pets. Then there were a lot less TV programs, a lot less content coming out from the other end across broadcast, cable, premium pay, and streaming. We had 532 programs in 2019, a high. 493 scripted programs in 2020. And some of those programs are still moving over into 2021-2022 season. So at the end of this fall. Now, TV is still the primary screen for viewing video, 62% of time spent, but is down. Connected devices for share of screen time increased. Mobile video accounted for 14% of time spent if you're consuming or adopting any kind of entertainment. And the movie releases, they all dropped, obviously, because a lot of them got moved. We knew about that. Box office took a major hit. 2020, it was a 40-year low for domestic box office. $2.2 billion. That's all they got in 2020. In 1981, the U.S.-Canada market, led by Superman 2, generated $918 million in ticket sales when the average movie ticket price was $2.78 compared to $9.16 in 2020. And, of course, an all-time low for attendance in theaters. Again, last year in 2020, I only got to see, I want to say, 7 total. That's all I got to see. Top grossing movie in 2020 was Bad Boys for Life because it was running before the pandemic. Last year, 2019's top grossing film was Avengers Endgame, $858 million domestic. And everybody thought the box office was going to do really good before pandemic, but no. And as we know right now, Godzilla vs. Kong is the first catalyst to see how the movie theater is going to come back, and it's become profitable. The movie's grossed over $350 million globally, almost $70 million its first 2 weekends. Highest grossing movie in over 1 year. Also released on HBO Max, which is also commendable. So now streaming claimed it was the most watched content ever in a given weekend since its launch last May. So if it works out for like an HBO Max to do Warner Brothers movies where they're simultaneous, rock on. But we know that's only for this year. And the next year, they're going to go ahead and put the window back up. I mean, it's not necessarily so much, when you think about it, why the movies have to be put out first on demand. People were already accustomed to secondary streaming anyway of those movies afterwards. It doesn't really matter when they come out. They just know if people want to watch it first, you go to the theater for it. It's kind of nice that one physical unit's still there. You can still go to the theaters and watch it first before everybody else does. And it makes it a moment. It makes it an event. Because, again, to watch it with a crowd, especially like an Avengers Endgame, how would you have felt if you had to watch that movie and you saw Captain America grab Thor's hammer? How would you have felt if you couldn't laugh at a certain movie? If you could not watch Bad Boys for Life and laugh at it like I did? There's something to be said about the movie theater experience. That's just, it's done very well. When it's quality and when it's good, people will go and pay the money for it. And I, next week, will be waiting to go and go to my movie theater on Friday. I guess I'll watch Mortal Kombat, and I'll probably watch Nobody, the Bob Odenkirk film. I'll probably catch up on those two first, and then I'll move along and say, okay, let's go on the next thing. It'll be nice to get back to that once again. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, moving along. We're starting to see some issues when it comes to Amazon. They're looking to go ahead and get into the sports space. So let's get into that. Very interesting story coming out of this. Andrew Marchand in the New York Post, he reports that during internal Amazon meetings to discuss how it wants to deliver live sports to fans, executives have a saying, your game, your way. So Amazon now is continuing to increase its marquee live sports offerings. There's anticipation regarding how Amazon will cover the NFL after its recent multi-billion-dollar deal for exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football. So what is Amazon building, people are asking. So with endless pockets and more than 200 million Amazon Prime subscribers, Amazon is shopping in the Tiffany aisle of world sports. So they are now a home of Thursday Night Football for the 2022 or 2023 NFL season. The Yankees are going to be covered for 21 games on Amazon this season, locally. So there is a potential takeover of sports media that's far from certain, but it's certainly seeing what Amazon's trying to do and how, with its deep pockets and broad portfolio, it could create another empire. The internet is about niche, connecting people quickly with what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. So Amazon's brought this game to acquiring sports rights. Amazon has added rights to the likes of the Premier League, the Champions League, International Cricket, and the 240 or so countries that have its app. And so, depending on where you live in the world, these games are becoming a part of Amazon Prime, which is a $119 subscription in the United States, which is worth it, at least in my opinion. So again, like I said, Amazon Yankees broadcast will be available within the Yes Network's geographical imprint. And viewers do not need to be Yes subscribers, just Prime members. Amazon also trying to go and break ground by having their first all-female NFL broadcast duo. It will be Hannah Storm and Andrew Kramer of ESPN fame that will be doing Thursday Night Football. And that won't be bad. I guess they're not going to be that bad. But again, two experienced sports hosts. Andrew Kramer was more about, online, but she's also did, I guess, some anchor stuff. So they both hosted. So I don't see how that. Yeah, I'm curious to see how they do. And again, I'll watch the games. I'm not necessarily going all tuned in for Joe Bucket and Troy Aikman in the first place. Now, they also own Twitch. Amazon does, the streaming platform focused on video games. So they have the watch party approach, and they're a fan of gambling opportunities in the broadcast space, which sites like Barstool Sports have already popularized. So they're trying to transform the whole space. With new direct-to-consumer platforms like Paramount Plus, ESPN Plus, and Peacock, they may attempt similar offerings to try to serve fans. One of the thoughts that might be coming up as well could be the return of NFL broadcasts without announcers, which has been experimented for Premier League games in England. Now, regarding the issue of stream latency and delivering broadcasts, Amazon's made great strides to stream to screens smoothly. And one of their spokespeople actually said that they're investing in technology to reduce lag and improve streaming quality. They want to change the way customers watch sports. They don't want to program the one type of fan. They want to offer all sorts of personalization and, more accurately, customization. And with ESPN and Fox Sports and the change of the regional sports networks to Bally's from Fox Sports that are owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, can they keep up with the acquiring of sports rights when Amazon can come in, or Peacock will come in and they'll create the relationships that they want? That could very well happen. Now, there's not a deal anytime soon for Amazon to get a Super Bowl, because that'll be the big deal. The new 11-year NFL deals, which begin in 2023, will keep the Super Bowl on every network TV through the mid-2030s. Amazon's NFL deal gives it rights to a playoff game if it reaches certain viewership marks, served by performance base. It will pay the NFL about $1 billion for its 15 regular season games. NFL Sunday Ticket is up for auction. Uh-oh. Now, if Amazon is able to go ahead and do anything where they can get the season ticket and put it on their app, watch out. That is such a ticket right there. If they can get that package and offer it to Amazon Prime subscribers, sports bars will go dead on Sundays. Mark my words. Whew. That is something very much that people have to keep an eye out for. That's incredible. Now, one other thing I saw that was very interesting to me is the issue about advertising. I know people don't really talk much about it, but again, because the subscribers and the streaming models already have their money in place, with no commercials needed unless you're Peacock, they still offer some ads, Hulu in the same way. You still think about the fact that people are not watching ads. So where are these advertisers going with their ads? And who's going to get to watch them? So as a column I saw from adexchanger.com, the buyer's dilemma has come to roost. So Byron Schaefer, Senior VP of Research at Vivo, wrote this guest column. He says this, quote, "Today the media industry faces multidimensional fragmentation, heightened media competition, limited measurement, and a rapidly decreasing TV ad supply. Networks have pivoted towards streaming. The buying community has fallen, resulting in TV networks aggressively packaging hybrid offerings for the upfront season." The upfronts we're talking about for the new fall season coming up. So changes mean looming liabilities and risk management will guide this year's upfronts. Ad buyers appreciate the risk they are fully exposed to in the linear TV ad market, and the true measure of success may be how much exposure they can limit themselves. So more of less volume, higher prices. Except for cancellation options, TV networks still offer less fluidity and flexibility, not more. They package and market inventory as being dynamic and fluid to lure buyers, but not linear supply, because it's very risky for them. So under delivery from inventory sold after a year don't materialize. They need to be made good. And scarcity and reluctance to buy traditional buying methods drive these commitments. So again, it's making it harder to go and sell. You can't fit scarcity by adding modest streaming inventory price that broadcast prime rates are higher. They can't be charging as much. And because they're getting streaming right now, some of the costs that they're losing from the ad sales, they're going to try to outweigh it from streaming subscribers. That's the plan, which is a smart plan. They had to do something about it. Comparatively, the streaming inventory has modest market coverage, and existing supply is frequency driven and doesn't come close to offsetting the scarcity of linear supply. So again, the amount of ad space, it's diminished on digital. And so all those minutes of time, say 22 minutes of programming in a 30-minute show, and you got 8 minutes of ad time, or 43 minutes of a 60-minute program and 17 minutes of ad time, those slots are there, but nobody's buying them. There's not so much up there. But yet, the networks don't want to go ahead and cut the time down. They're going to hold on and hope for somebody to fill that space, hoping that somebody will. Moreover, larger proportions of linear ad supply is no longer adjacent to extremely valuable entertainment content, except for sports. Because sports always has a small, it has a lot of ad inventory, but again, I just said but again, but their deal is that they have it spread out much more. If you're watching an NFL broadcast, except for pregame, postgame shows, things like that, that's when they have the longer commercial breaks. But within the game itself, the breaks are short. If you're watching boxing, it's 1 minute per round. If it's NFL, probably 90 seconds. If it's Major League Baseball, probably about 2 minutes. And that's about it. That's all they get, pretty much. Now, I mentioned the NFL as part of the Amazon deal for Thursday Night Football. Well, streaming efforts by the NFL will acclimate customers to accessing live events through streaming. Networks have already tripled down on sports, but new distribution opportunities, like the NFL's partnership with Amazon, will expedite the path away from linear. The new deals place an overweight bet, solidifying sports as one of the few last drivers of meaningful audiences, which are seasonal and experiencing erosion among younger viewers. And at least in these places, they could still try to continue to have ads in them. Some way, somehow. Whether it's picture-in-picture or they put it on the screen, they could find ways to monetize those broadcasts. Sports, we're still accustomed to advertising. It's just the way it is. There's a whole lot of ads out there. The NFL today constitutes about 3% of annual linear TV viewership, but 10% of the market's licensing costs. Note how it's an investment of more than 3 times its fair share by very mature and declining network businesses. NFL annual licensing costs are most, if not all, of what top-line network ad revenue exists, because it can charge the highest for it. Again, I believe $2 million an ad for a 30-second ad on the Super Bowl this year. It continues to grow. Viacom, CBS, Fox, and Comcast paying more than $2 billion per year for their packages. Disney paying around $2.7 billion annually. And then there's the connected TVs issue. Issues against connected TVs going up against free ad-supported landscape. Connected TVs have a variety of platforms with user data, informing planning and buying validation with modernized versions of Nielsen ratings and with markedly better statistical reliability. So again, the metrics by which advertising rates are formulated. Same thing with Nielsen for the radio market. How do they determine the pricing of a particular station's rates? Well, they do it because if it's the top 5 stations of a market, then they can ask for top dollar. That's just the way it works. But then it's not pegged to Google, Amazon, or Facebook, so ad buyers are not beholden to them, much like TV ad buyers have into the networks for the linear supply. And there's a lot more flexibility in the plans and what's able to be available for what people can do. Because these platforms here are more flexible. Digital media's DNA. They deliver as they only plan for what is possible. The audiences that marketers want, they can actually pinpoint more and micro target. Underscore the importance of a highly diversified media plan and provide much of the measurements endemically to help their delivery and effectiveness into rich and useful contexts. Advertising is going to hurt. So in the same way that corporate media is hurting right now and getting a continued decline, advertising very much is in a continued decline. What happens then? What do you do next? Got to think about that. What am I going to leave it there? I appreciate all of you checking out the show. As you always do, we'll keep it a little bit short tonight. Got everything I wanted to get in. And this story will continue. I am amazed how many stories I can find every week that continue to go ahead and talk about the downfall of corporate media and where we are and the advantages and the new technologies that are coming in. We know now that celebrities versus influencers, I like to talk about that a lot. Social audio, I do want to talk about a bit more, but I want to give it some more time because quite a few of these platforms are not available yet. But they're talking about it already because of how quickly Clubhouse has taken off. 12.7 million users. That is quite commendable. So once the social audio project is available to all the masses, then we can really pinpoint and see who's doing best. And also see how people do with live programming and what kind of interactivity they get. It's, again, nobody's talking about the fact how social audio could directly destroy radio as a whole. I mean, is anybody looking at that at all? Is anybody considering the fact that radio could be hurting amazingly right now? I don't know if anybody does. If anybody's considering it. Well, there's one story from Medium that I saw that did kind of help out because social audio apps are changing the audio landscape. And Ezra Eman, in a Medium.com article, he talks about this. He mentions how digital, distributed, and in spontaneous, organized rooms, audio conversations are taking the internet by storm. The ecosystem is still new, he says, and still fragile in the business model as unclear yet. But the map is expanding, and the world is locked in what we all seem to crave for more intimate digital experiences where video can quickly feel too much. Audio has a lower threshold for spontaneous socializing. So rather dismissing it as a temporary fad, which radio could think, he thinks it's interesting to look at the broader dynamic between what's happening. A third generation of audio is emerging, distinctive yet with elements that feel very much like live, linear radio talk shows. And why would we have that? Well, because corporate radio has a particular market they want to go to. Believe it or not, the political space is very popular on your AM, FM talk radio. It's not completely balanced, except unless you consider the NPR leans one way, and then all these other talk stations lean the other direction. They lean conservative. Well, meanwhile, NPR leans more towards a progressive sound or direction and narrative. Radio's been around for over 100 years. It's hitting another market that can also take it down because it was television, then podcasting, and now social audio. This already kind of came about before because YouTube and Twitch and others already had the market like this, but again with the video component. But now going to audio, I mean, it still comes down to the fact you got to have good sounding audio to make this work. And somebody has to be able to go and moderate the conversation, I would imagine. I mean, in some cases, people can just do it where it's like a webinar and people are just talking in between. Sure. But I think you still have to have somebody that is moderating and directing the conversation to where things are going. I still think that's something that needs to be happening some way, shape, or form. So Radio 1.0, live linear terrestrial radio with all its magic, connecting people, ideas, and music in a schedule that guides listeners across the day. For sure, it's not just simply an antenna broadcasting content anymore. The means of production and distribution have radically changed. But from a strategic perspective, digital radio is essentially the same broadcast radio wrapped in a different distribution format. Radio 2.0 brought users control through interactivity and on-demand content. And that's where we got our podcasting efforts and our on-demand audio. The third wave is now these new audio apps with a distinctive social layer, either extensions of existing social networks allowing to chat or send audio messages. Or there are whole new social ecosystems that have audio at the center like Clubhouse, Space, or Voice Hub. Well, what's going to happen is we're going to find out what's ultimately the social audio app that people are going to go to the most. So Clubhouse already has the market because they were first out with a lot of adopters. Space and the Voice Hub are next. These last ones can be quite overwhelming with hundreds of people in rooms in the hands of a skilled or unskilled moderator. But even here, you start seeing very well produced and executed talk shows with great guests, clear rules of engagement, and schedules you can add to your agenda so you don't miss any upcoming talks. The other evolution of Radio 3.0 is the advent of personalized and customizable radio with object-based media, allowing mixers to mix and match your live radio themes with the music they like, fast forward, save, skip, or any other smart or chosen interaction. So the other thing we used to have to do is also stream through an audio source, through a stream host. Kind of takes that away. Because nobody's looking at necessarily having to go 24 hours. A lot of streaming radio stations do, but they also have to pay for that. But now here, again, is amazing. The great unbundling he talks about. Unbundling the traditional radio stream of morning shows, news briefings, hit shows, and intimate interviews. Every part of the schedule now can be experienced in isolation. So the morning show, you now have Spotify using the Daily Drive and the Get Up. News briefings, Google and Amazon are redefining news briefings and experimenting with aggregated news formats like your news update. Spotify and other music streaming platforms have defined their own rankings and are challenging the classic hit lists. The talk show, Clubhouse and social audio apps are experimenting with new scheduled live panels and talk shows. And the topic deep dive or interview podcasts are a popular genre that mimic the intimacy of a radio conversation. Rather than this a threat that could be an opportunity for traditional radio broadcasters, never before has there been such a rich landscape for audio experiences. Now, this person's in Europe. He sees many public broadcasters rising to the occasion. Aha! So podcasting's on the rise. A significant part is going to be produced by PSM. So again, public broadcasters. In the UK, BBC podcasts accounted for 34% of all podcasting hours. In America, NPR does really corner the market in podcasting, and they are known for one of the best styles of podcasting across the board. For intimate conversations, for news and information, they do the best. I will admit, it's not what I necessarily go for, but you have to really take a point of that. Now, he goes more into the European radio part, but he talks about how radio is evolving. We're at the start of the third wave. A lot of opportunities will have to be tried and tested. Nothing will stick, but experimentation is key and does not need to be complex. So I like where he's coming from here. Very important. So I'm going to hold on to this guy. I want to make sure I see any other stories that come from him, much like I've been watching with Fred Jacobs as of late. Interesting what he's talking about here and some of the stories he's brought up. So I'll keep an eye on him, see if there's anything else that comes up. So we'll leave it there. Well, that got to my hour, like I had planned. Social audio. This is one of the big key buzzwords in media for 2021. We'll keep an eye on it. And when I get a chance to try it out myself, I'll see how it works for me and what it works for me in a radio sense that I've done in my past and how I can incorporate it to be the kind of live radio content that I want to listen to. And maybe others will listen to it the same way. Because for me, this program is me doing content that I want to hear. And I hope others like you enjoy listening to this every week. You know why? The little catchphrase I talk about at the end of the show. Content is king. And the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.